Recently, a number of properties and characters have rolled over into the public domain. These include beloved childhood properties like Winnie the Pooh, or more recently, Popeye the Sailor Man. The public domain refers to intellectual properties that are no longer protected under copyright, so anyone and everyone can reference them without having to pay a copyright holder, or even create a new story and adaptation based on it. There have been companies, Disney, who have been fighting against the public domain in order to protect their own properties, which is extremely ironic because Disney owes a lot of their success to the public domain. Many of their films are adaptations of public domain stories, including Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which was their first major motion picture and their first major hit. And yet they've been advocating for decades to keep properties out of the public domain for as long as possible. They're also fiercely protective of their properties, even though again, most of them were not created by Disney. Like for example, recently Winnie the Pooh went into public domain. However, they're very specific about their distinct version of Winnie the Pooh, since despite the fact they didn't create Winnie the Pooh, they do own the copyright for some of his later works. So basically you can use Winnie the Pooh for your own works, but you can't put a little red shirt on him. Although it's a little bit ironic because Disney has been caught using fan work for their own official merchandise, despite not having permission from the original artist. I just feel like it's ironic that Disney has this kind of attitude towards the public domain, and their practices tend to be a bit hypocritical. So admittedly, it's a little annoying when we wait almost 100 years to get something into the public domain, only for these beloved characters to not be used in a very inspiring way. Basically, they're just being used as some run-of-the-mill slasher horror monster that these movie makers can make some quick cash on. Winnie the Pooh, Popeye, and even Mickey Mouse. Disney gatekeeps and says they need to protect their IPs only for people to do this with them, so thanks for that. Anyway, horror can be very complex and thought-provoking, and it can be pretty cathartic for those who enjoy it, where they're able to explore these kinds of intense emotions in a safe environment. But horror can also be pretty exploitative, where creators will just throw blood and guts at the screen and not really have anything much to say, which unfortunately is the kind of movies we're getting with these new public domain characters, pretty much falling into all of these tropes and cliches we've seen mocked a million times about slasher films. The hapless fools that are basically just there to be picked off one by one, who often make poor decisions anyway. Sometimes writers like to play around with these formulas, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. But when we look at the numbers, things start to add up. According to IMDb, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, a horror movie that was thrown together almost immediately after Winnie the Pooh went into the public domain, only cost $100,000 to make, which is practically nothing when it comes to movie making, even for low-budget movies. But despite the low ratings and being critically and commercially panned, the movie still made $7 million worldwide. A movie with a modest budget that made a modest profit of millions of dollars. The truth is, these movies don't have to be good, as long as they make a profit, so it's unsurprising that they announced a sequel, or that it already came out months ago. They clearly have a quick turnover rate, but this time they upped the budget to $500,000. Really going all out for this one, huh? And they still made $7 million. Critics also said that it was an improvement of the original, but that's not really saying much, and it was still pretty much panned. Not that it matters, but here we are. And it's not just movies. We're also getting a video game next year called Winnie's Hole, charming, where you play as a virus that's supposed to mutate Winnie the Pooh's body until he turns into a grotesque monster, which makes no sense because Pooh Bear is a stuffed animal. He doesn't have cells, but it doesn't matter because we're just here to get weird. Ironically, an old Disney game went viral recently, Piglet's Big Game from 2003, which uses the Disney license and was marketed to children. It even has this unassuming cover art. But the developers confirmed that it was inspired by games like Resident Evil, along with Luigi's Mansion, but you can tell that it was pulling from survival horror games at the time, both in the level and sound design. And it actually has some pretty decent reviews, and even more so now that there's renewed interest in the game. Like this article from The Gamer titled "Piglet's Big Game Reminds Us of What Gaming Is Lost," which I think says a lot about the modern gaming industry. But I also think that this proves that you can have these darker elements in kids' media, with these beloved childhood classics, but they don't feel exploitative, or, over the top to the point where it's just silly. But although it can be done, we're just getting more slop content. And now it looks like Popeye is getting the same treatment. First we have Popeye the Slayer Man. Get it? Because he's Popeye the Sailor Man, but now it's the Slayer Man. It's very clever. Apparently Popeye ate some bad spinach and now he's a killer. I'm not kidding, that's what the trailer says.
Do you know why the factory closed down 20 years ago? there was a spinach contamination.
So I guess he was a heroic sailor, but then he got food poisoning, and now he's evil. Speaking of this trailer, it pretty much shows everything, like all of the kills, which is basically the reason why people would watch this movie anyway, just to see people die in interesting and horrible ways. But if they show all the slashing in the trailer, then what's the point of actually seeing the slasher? They don't actually build up any suspense, just give away all of their tricks. At least they seem self-aware, that has to count for something. But it also kind of comes off as they know that they're kind of cringy, like maybe they could have put more effort into it, they just chose not to. Like what if Popeye was tracking down this serial killer and fighting him off and trying to protect people? That way they can still have their gory kills, but without it actually being Popeye being the monster. That way Popeye still gets to be in character, but they still have their raunchy R-rated movie. Admittedly, I would prefer more of an epic adventure instead of a slasher movie. I mean, imagine Popeye fighting off sea monsters. Maybe they could make another live-action movie to redeem the one from 1980 with Robin Williams, which was kind of underwhelming, which is a shame since the casting was actually pretty good. Robin Williams was a lot of fun as Popeye, and Shelley Duvall was a great choice for Olive Oyl, but the script was kind of weak. Also, I think that the design they have for Popeye just looks kinda bad. What is going on with his chin? I get that it can be hard to translate a cartoon character into live action, but honestly, Robin Williams looked better than this. And they didn't even use any prosthetics for him. He's just scrunching up his face. They're saying that they're using practical effects, which is cool, but it still doesn't necessarily guarantee a good-looking product. It's pretty obvious that they're just using the name recognition and the novelty of having these children's icons become terrible killers, or monsters like in Winnie's Hole. I don't know, I just think it would be nice to have something a little deeper than just, what if this beloved childhood character was a serial killer? But that's my opinion. What do you guys think? Personally, I am glad these characters are in the public domain now, but how do you feel about this new trend? Let me know in the comments below, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching everyone, I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to the members: Tyrant Carnivore, Shiny Orc Boy, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Verdant Range, JVR, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Equestron, Norman Sweet Cream, Rabion Coincidence, Hunter Rose, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Felix Spam, Lucas Geist, Jay Draws, Meowsers, Sky, Philip, Isaac Martinez, Garcia XV Legend, Tobias Weller, Bandito Bane, Mac B909, Dakari the Professor, Jin the Goblin, Caleb Nelson, Todd McCaffrey, Omri Fair, Crimson Phantom, Data Dine Executive, Alto Burrito 9506, Cavalcoge, and Strider Exile. Thank you all so much for your support. If you would like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. And if you enjoyed this content, you can leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, and that part's free. I'd really appreciate the support. But thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.